Welcome to the SPEAKPact podcast, where high-performing speakers and the producers who hire them merge to give you the insider secrets to the lucrative speaking industry. Antoniette Roze, your podcast host and celebrated speaker agent, unveils insider success strategies. Discover a nexus of thought leaders and bookers, maximizing your potential in each and every episode. Your ticket to ultimate speaking success begins right here. Catch the transformative insights waiting for you on the SPEAKPact podcast, hosted by the industry powerhouse herself, Antoniette Roze.
Welcome back to SPEAKPact. I am thrilled to bring to you a master when it comes to marketing and getting your message out through the power of words in book form. So Tyler Wagner is with me today. He is the CEO of Authors Unite. And we're going to talk all about books, why that's relevant to speakers, and why speaking is relevant to authors. So Tyler, why don't you start us off? First of all, what got you interested in the world of authorship?
I love telling that story. So, and I could take up the whole time on that because it's a good one, but I'll keep it shorter. So basically I was 19, 20, and it was my second year of college. And I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferris,
Yes.
which a lot of, and I can't remember exactly what it was in the book that just changed my entire mindset on things, but whatever it was, it did. And within weeks after, I decided to drop out of college because I remember calling my counselor in college after I read it. And I was like, do we have like an entrepreneurship major at this university? Yeah. She's like, no, but we have a management major. And I was like, nah, that's not really what I'm looking for. So I dropped out. And I moved into this entrepreneur house with 6 other guys in West Des Moines, Iowa. And the guy who owned the house had already become successful, but the other 6 of us were all trying to figure out like what business are we going to start and kind of just early stages of it. And I decided I wanted to be a public speaker. And then I realized from going on to all these conferences, very fitting for this story, I just realized that, is that most, if not, I shouldn't say all, so we'll stick with most of the speakers at these conferences I was going to, and I had been to like hundreds of them when I dropped out of college. That was like my number one way of learning, just reading books and going to conferences. Yeah. They were either authors or best-selling authors. Like everybody almost on the stage was an author or best-selling author. And then it hit me and I was like, well, I'm 19, 20. I'm like 80 grand in college debt. Nobody's going to pay me to speak on their stage. Like I don't have like any expertise per se. So the only way for me to do this is if I write a book and actually become an expert on something. So that's what got me into this. I wrote a book called Conference Crushing. Became a bestseller. It's like how to network at conferences, and it has like 17 different steps in it, and did pretty well. Became a bestseller on Amazon, and then it actually did work. I started to get hired. I got paid anywhere from like $1 to $3 grand, I think it was, per keynote, and probably did about 10 or so. And then what I realized for me is that I was getting like more people every time I would do it were interested in helping them with their book. And I was like, oh, okay, this is for me, I was like, this is another business. So then I just went completely down that path. So I still do public speaking here and there, but for me, it just clicked that a lot of people want to write books, and I kind of figured out the formula, and that's how Authors Unite was born and like how I got into the industry.
So it sounds like you're pretty young. Like, what year did you start the company?
Year. So I think I've been running it 12 to 13 years. I'm 32. Yeah, because 1920. So what would that have been? 2012 or 2011? Yeah, 2011, yes. 2012. I think that's the year.
And you have an impressive list of authors. It's really fun to read, and you just can go to authorsunite.com and see that. But what do you think why do you think speaking and authorship kind of go hand in hand?
Well, I think first thing that comes to mind is I think both of them are like an authority position. And actually the root word, you may have heard this before, but I like saying it. The root word of authority is author. So when I first heard that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. It makes complete sense. But yeah, both of them are like authority leadership positions. And I think when an event, well, two perspectives to think about here. When an event is considering hiring or engaging people to come speak at their event, if you are a best-selling author on a specific topic, I just think that easily puts you in the front of the line. Like, it's just so much easier to vet that person rather than somebody that doesn't have a book on a topic. You know, if you're a bestseller on a topic, you can pretty much, it's almost like guaranteed. Like, you at least are, you know, intermediate at it, you know, like ideally expert, but I'm just saying, like, so that it just puts you at the front of the line. And then for the audience members, if they know, you know, when you're announced or introduced that you're a best-selling author or like New York Times, Wall Street, whichever one it is, the trust, I think, is just built like right away. So I think that that's kind of how they are connected. Like, they both kind of do the same thing for you as a brand. And what that is, in my opinion, is just like immediate trust. It's like being a doctor almost. Like, the trust is just there by the name.
Yes. Even Anthony Robbins, if you'll notice when he is on a talk show, or they don't say Anthony Robbins, world influencer, right? They say author Anthony Robbins. And I find that really interesting. I also love a few things that you said I'd like to touch on. First and foremost, it is an amazing door opener. Having a book is an incredible door opener. I think that a lot of people need that mind shift because they think they're going to write a book and they're going to become rich off of the book. Maybe, but not from the sales of the book typically. Not typically of the sales of the book. It's more about the opportunities that it opens up to you. And if I have, let's say, 3 speakers that are a good fit for a particular engagement, and I pitch all 3, a lot of times these engagements will take multiple speakers at a time. It really does make a difference if one is a best-selling author. I don't know what it is. Definitely. I'm feeling like maybe I need to write my own book. I've played around with it at times, but it can feel pretty daunting. Like, it can feel like a very large commitment to embark on putting together a full book.
Well, I think, I can just tell you from my experience, because again, I was 19, 20, and I almost felt like a fake, if I'm being completely honest on this. Like, not now, obviously, because like I've really done it now. But when I was 19, 20 and the book came out, I put a lot of time and effort, and it was on a topic that I had experience in. But the reality was I wasn't like successful, if you will, because I was like literally in debt and I was like 19, 20 years old.
Sure.
So like when I was getting paid to speak on the stages and like teach people things in the audience, and I would think to myself, like, everybody in this audience is like in a better financial position than me, but they're listening to what I have to say. Not that everything is about finances, right? I mean, it's not, but that is obviously a component to things. So it's just, but the reason, like you said, that I was able to get in those positions, even though maybe I wasn't even qualified, some would say, was because of the book. Like, that was the only reason. Without the book, I don't think I would have gotten any of those gigs. Like, and obviously I wouldn't have started the business, because that's kind of what got me to fall into it. So
you feel like the book got you the engagements?
100%. I mean, obviously, I still had to do the reaching out and stuff to people, because what I did, like, after it became a bestseller, I knew my target was conferences, right? And my angle was, this book is a good way to open up your event, because it'll teach everybody in the audience how to maximize their time at your event. And, you know, I would get, out of every 100 reach outs, I get 95 no's, but I get like 5 yeses, right? Or whatever it was, or 3 yeses. So, you know, it's sometimes just a numbers game, but I think, you know, if I didn't have the book, I really wouldn't have had any angle, right? I would have just been like, hey, I'm 19, 20 in debt. and I'm an aspiring entrepreneur, and I'd love to tell your members about that, or something. They'd be like, okay, why don't you just buy a ticket?
A few things you said were super, super key. Okay, number one, it is a numbers game. It is. And the more no's you get, right, the closer you're getting to the yeses. So I love that even at 19 and 20 years old, you didn't give up after 20 rejections, right? And oftentimes rejections come in just silence, right? Just no responses. So the fact that you just had that tenacity and somehow inner knowing that if I keep doing this, I'm going to get those stages. And now you've built an incredible company as a result. So I wanted to touch on two things. First of all, you're right. If the best way to get an engagement is for somebody that the speaker booker knows to say, hey, bring Tyler Wagner on your stage. He's incredible. He's a sure bet. Your audience is going to love him, right? That's the best way. The second best way is for a different third party validation that is trusted by the speaker booker. And books are that. Books are a third party validation. And anymore, self-published books are just as recognized and just as
definitely
valid, right, as some of the big publishing houses. And there's smaller publishing companies now that are much more accessible to us, but they're very powerful. Once upon a time, if you weren't with one of the, 10 biggies, then it wasn't a real, quote unquote, real book. At 19 or 20, did you self-publish or did you get a publishing house? What'd you do?
No, I actually self-published, but I did it like, how do I word this? I think I did it kind of I did it the right way, if that makes sense. Like, I really did put in the money that I didn't have, the money that I loaned from my parents. And I paid $500 for my book cover designer, I really just found the top talent. And some of them, if not all of them, came from referrals of other people I knew that, were authors. So, I think a lot of times what people will do is, they'll spend months or a year writing a whole book, and then they're on a budget and, they'll spend like $5 on a cover. And to me, it's like, I understand if you're on a budget, so I can appreciate that. But I also just think you got to also think about the time that you put into this, and packaging, unfortunately, is very important, right?
Yes.
So I was willing, and luckily, I've just awesome parents, and I was able to pay them back eventually, but they loaned me a few grand, and I was able to, just hire great designers, formatters, and so it worked out. I would say it looked just like a super quality book, even though it was self-published.
You are so right. So I started off my career right out of college in publishing. And I quickly rose to a position of leadership, which was pretty amazing. Talk about college after college. Like, that was my true college. And there was one author that came through, and his book was on the subject of death. So he wanted to use black, just a black cover. And we were, the team of us were just like, it's just not going to do it. It's already a heavy subject. And then you put a heavy color on top of it. He insisted we did it. It went nowhere. We changed the cover, and it did become a bestseller. And it's the same words inside, same author. And he was a dynamic human being, an incredible message within the book. But people they go for the feels, right? And however that cover makes them feel, really determines whether they pick that book or the book next to it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And actually, Seth Godin, if you're familiar with him,
yes, I love Seth.
I can't remember how he says it, but I just remember hearing something from him along the lines of packaging is just as important, if not more important, than the actual product that you're packaging.
Yeah.
And when you think about it like that, you'll take your book cover a lot more seriously. So.
Yes. Okay. So I want to ask you about bestselling. So there's Amazon bestselling, there's Wall Street Journal bestselling, There's New York Times best-selling book. Anymore, I think if you just put best-selling, that that piques attention, right? There's some that understand that there's a bit of a echelon in there. But what are your thoughts behind, number one, becoming a best-selling author? Because I know your company is all about getting authors to best-selling status, and really getting their books out there. But do you place a different weight on the different monikers?
Yeah, I would say that. So I do, just because I know the difference in difficulty, but I would say that I agree with what you said before in the sense of like, if you just put bestseller on the cover, like, and whether it has NYT, Wall Street Journal, or Amazon, whatever it is, the brand before it, to the average reader, like 99% of the population, it does not make a difference, in my opinion. Like if you're a bestseller, you're a bestseller, and the value of that is widely seen, and you're good to go. Where it does make a difference is just, I would, in that 1%, if you will, of the people that, are aware and understand how those lists function.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd want me to, I could explain a little bit on how they functions if you want.
Well, if it's only like 1% that care,
then no,
I don't care.
Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, no, because it starts to get like technical. But all I'll say on a macro level is just like basically that, NYT is like most difficult, and then Wall Street Journal's like second, and then Amazon is easiest.
Yes.
Right. And, so either way, so that's how it goes. But again, if you're a best-selling author, general public, it's going to be a win no matter which one it is. The only times I think it matters is when you're talking to somebody else that is aware. They might just, if they know, then they could maybe not, it won't be as valuable to
discount
them.
you a little bit. Yes.
Yeah, depending on which list it is. But that will be very rare. Most people don't know.
Yes.
So I don't think
one thing that I have found is you can become correct me if because this is not my space, right? But anymore, you can become an Amazon bestseller with a self-published book. Is that right?
Yeah, you can become a bestseller on every list, actually, with a self-published book. The only one that is like very difficult to do that with is New York Times. But all the other ones.
Is Forbes one also? Is that something different?
Forbes, actually, they have they don't have a bestseller list, but they have a publishing house.
Yes. Okay.
Now, and I don't know, because I think they have they have Advantage and then they have Forbes, but both are under Forbes. And I don't know if they're considered self or traditional. I'm not sure how they are.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the difference between a speaker feeling like they need to go ahead and write a book to open up more opportunities for themselves to get speaking engagements versus an author utilizing stages and maybe top 5% podcasts or podcasts in their genre to sell their books. Like, let's talk a little bit about that. Are they equally as important, equally as effective? What are your thoughts on that?
Can you say the first one more time? I just want to make sure I fully.
There's speakers who feel like, oh, well, if I'm going to be a speaker, I want to get on more stages, I should go ahead and write a book.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I do think they go hand in hand, and they're pretty equal in importance. Here, I'll start from my end first, so being an author first, and then, wanting to sell your books, and, maybe you have a business on the back end in public speaking, and things of that nature. Like, the beautiful thing of the book as well is that it's the front end or the foundation of your entire business and operation. Like, that's how I really view it. Mm-hmm. If that's what you're trying to do for it, right? Everybody has different goals. So maybe you want to write a memoir and that would be different. But in this scenario, if you have a business, say you have a course, consulting, public speaking, you have all these things, well, the perfect thing to have then is a book that costs anywhere from, $1 to $20 and have it be super, super valuable. And then, go on podcasts, get featured in media, go on stages, and just have the book be the core thing that you're selling. And then kind of the other things all take care of themselves as long as that book gets in enough hands and people enjoy it. Right. And so it simplifies the process, because without the book, then you're kind of you're kind of selling like different things or trying to do different things. With the book, everything can funnel through it. So you only need to focus on one thing.
Yes. Okay. I love that you said that. I think that people get afraid, well, I'm going to give all my secrets away. So why would anybody hire me for their stage, or why would anybody buy my program or bring me in for a conference? And I feel like that's really a scarcity mentality. It's not a good way to think. Are you familiar? Do you happen to be familiar with Jeff Walker?
Oh,
PLF?
yeah, of course. Yeah, like product launch formula.
Yes. So what's interesting about him is he has a book. It lines everything out. The people pay $10,000 for, I don't know, it might be more now, to get his program. Well, it's in a $20 book. Why would somebody buy the $20 book and then go buy his $10,000 program? What's interesting to me is not only is it in the book, but then once or twice a year, he actually lays out his entire program in like a 3-day free workshop online. You don't have to, you don't even have to buy the book.
I didn't know it was that. I didn't know it was like that. That's funny.
Yes, everything. I've bought all of his, I was in his top programs for it earlier in my career. And what was really interesting is the book, to me, establishes your authority. I'd never heard of that, actually, Tyler. I'd never heard of author in authority. I'm like, yes, it's there. It's right there. So it establishes your authority, which to me whets the appetite, because we can only get so far with just reading the material. It's more about the heart behind it. And so then we go seek you out and get all your free, any other kind of free content that you might have online or different places. But then that's still not enough. I want you to link arms with me and take me to those next levels. So that can be going and seeing you live on a stage, or joining your program, or buying your service. So I do believe it's it's like a key part of the whole synergistic packaging of what you need to do to build your brand and your brand awareness, right?
The example you gave there is perfect, because, and this is actually Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
One of the things he says, he's like, the reason I give all of my value away for free is because I know that 99% of people won't do anything with it, and like, so I think if you put together a 200, just say on average, 200-page awesome book, like give away all your secrets, most people, even if they read it, aren't going to act on it, right? Because what, they have a job, they have a family, like, so then the next step is they're like, all right, I'm going to invest in this course, and they're more audio or visual learners, so this will be easier for me than the book. So that's like $500 there on the course, and then they get through, and then again, life gets in the way, and then they finally do it though once I think they invest. The high ticket space, what I love about it, and that's kind of what Authors Unite more is that I do feel when you invest that amount of money, that that alone holds a lot of people accountable.
Yes.
Right. And that's where, action happens, and you actually start to see some results. And yeah, either way, you're held accountable in different ways in that format, but money is one of them. And I think it's just good. But it is interesting, like you're saying, though, that literally the exact same thing is in the book that's in the $10,000, but it takes the person here to actually get it done.
Yes.
Humans
but
are
the book's that first step. It really opens up the mind to a person. I remember years ago, I just read a book on decluttering, and I literally hunted down that author. I didn't know if he was doing any consulting or not, but I had a bed and breakfast, and it was just so hard to get rid of all the things, right? And I just wanted to get rid of all the things. And I hunted him down just because his book resonated with me. And thankfully, he actually did have a consulting business, and I was able to do some consulting with him. But had it not been for his book, I probably would have never really discovered him. So when you give away your quote unquote secrets, I believe if you have that abundance mentality and you give it, you can't outgive. And you hit the nail on the head, Tyler, when you said, I mean, basically, you said it in your words. My words is people need people. We're just wired to want to link arms and get that inertia, right? Get that kind of forward movement with other like-minded people. Why are there book clubs? Like, I could read the book on my own. Why do I need a book club for that? Right? Why are there workbooks that go with the book so that you can join some club that you're going to go through it together? It's just a whole part of the process. So tell me a little bit about Authors Unite. If I were to want to write a book, what kind of commitment would you tell me a little bit about the commitment that it would really mean for me? Where do I need to do it on my own? And then where do you come in and take me the rest of the way?
Yeah. So, I guess you call it the evolution of Authors Unite was it started out as a coaching business. And then I realized, at least for me, very quickly, I was hitting a ceiling and I couldn't scale. Probably because I was just doing like hundreds of one-on-one coaching, and that's very difficult to scale.
Yes.
So after a burnout occurred, basically, then I was like, okay, no more coaching. I actually still do coaching, but basically it's just for free, for fun on the side, like just when people need help. But the business, it's high ticket done for you. And then we have courses that are like low ticket. So there's really no like middle, I guess you could say. So one of two ways to answer your question would be, one way is you could take our course or courses, depending on the genre of book that you're writing. And then, if you follow the course, then at the end you could have a book written. Or we do ghostwriting. And for that, it's a way bigger, financial commitment. But
Sure.
As far as time goes, it's very little. Like it could be 10 hours total of time, like 1 hour a week over 10, 15 weeks of like, and the way it works is one of our writers would interview you over Zoom, once a week for an hour, and then they extract from the interview and then write your whole book for you.
Nice.
So yeah, those would be the two options on that front.
So, okay. So we do that, whether I do it with your DIY package or I have you guys do it for me. I get my beautiful book. I've got my beautiful book in my hand. Now what?
So next would be, so the ghostwriting includes editing. So editing would be next step, but then publishing would be the next. And that would be same scenario with our courses. You could do it yourself, or you can be published like under Authors Unite Publishing. And that's where, we use our designers that most of them I've been working with for like at least 5 years, some of them a decade. And formatters. So we do the whole thing for you, publishing. And then the next step after that is, depending on what bestseller list you want to hit, like we can basically guarantee all of them except NYT can't be guaranteed for various reasons. But if you wanted to do it, we could potentially, depending on your situation, help you get there. So you pick one of those, and then we do a bestseller campaign, get you bestseller. And then after that, it's really up to the client. And depending on their goals, we have other services for like more long-term marketing. So that would be like, getting them on podcasts, helping their book get like thousands of reviews on Amazon. So yeah, and then TEDx talks, like a lot of different things to just kind of keep the momentum going for the author.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So it's not something I could just hire you and you're going to go out and promote my book. From my point of view, the author needs to be pretty involved in the marketing of their own book. Are we on the same page with that? Or
I would say after the bestseller, yes. For the bestseller, though, they actually don't have to do anything. Like how we do it is, because some people listening might be curious on it. It's typical. Is like how could you guarantee sales and all that, right? It's a logical question.
Sure.
And basically what we do is, and this is me giving away the secret sauce, but I know that like it's so hard to do this that it would take a decade to do it. But basically what I've done over the years, there's all these email lists of people that have opted in to be notified when ebooks are discounted to 99 cents. So I have all these different email lists that I've either acquired or partnered with. And it's like in the millions, like 5 million plus people collectively on these lists. So that's how we do it. Like we'll discount the person's book to 99 cents for 7 days and then just blast it out to millions of people on these email lists. And then it'll, drive it thousands to tens of thousands of sales in a 1 week period. It should, I should say, will hit all of those lists. The only caveat is NYT, because NYT requires a lot of other elements to it.
That is, I think I've been part of that without even realizing it, because I'll get the notifications that, hey, this book just went up for 99 cents. I'm like, oh, I'll add that to my library. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Okay. I didn't realize that. That's amazing. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like that happens a lot. I'll be talking to somebody and they're like, I think I'm on one of those lists. And I'm like, well, just based on like percentages, I mean, it could be true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk TEDx. So there's TED Talks and then there's TEDx, which are two very different things, right? TED Talks, You have to have a formal invitation. TEDx, I have found, tell me if you found this, Tyler. Yeah. They used to be where you could apply, and more, they're becoming more like TED Talks, where they're taking the applications down from their respective websites, and you have to be invited. There are still some out there that still have the applications on their websites. Do you have an inroad, or do you just go through the front door?
So if I'm being completely honest, and I'm sorry, this answer probably won't be that helpful, is I actually have a connection that like does this for people, and he's had a lot of success with it. So in this particular scenario, we offer it through Authors Unite, but it's actually a white label, like of somebody else's service, if I'm being completely honest. So it's not me, and I don't know his secret, but I know that he's had a lot of success. Like I think he's gotten like a couple hundred people, and he actually guarantees it or like a full refund. So
wow.
Yeah, I'm happy to connect you with him after the talk.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Because it's really interesting. We had some success. It's not been ever our main push, but certainly that talk about third-party validation and authority building being associated with the name TED, whether it's TEDx or TED Talks. A lot of people don't even know there's a distinction. It can go a long way. But it is getting harder, not impossible. And I have relationships with different TEDx organizers, but it is definitely getting, especially post-pandemic, for whatever reason. I think a lot of people quit their jobs, and they're either a coach or they're a speaker, right? It's kind of
yeah. No, that's interesting. To me, one of the coolest parts of it too is that I can't remember the exact number, but their YouTube channel, I think it has like 35 million subscribers or something. So that's just crazy. Like, and they put your speech on that channel, 35 million subscribers. Like that's
yes.
Cool. So that's really cool too.
Definitely. Okay. So now let's talk about podcasts, because I heard you mention that. As an author, I think it's incredibly important to go where your right fit readers, right, your right fit people gather like grapes. And one of the number one places that is a podcast. I'm listening to a certain podcast because I want that specific information, right? And so taking your book and taking your message to the right podcasts, I think is really important. And a lot of that gets discounted a lot. Well, I'm not getting paid for that. There's a lot of different ways to get paid. And I think that if you do it right, there's no speaking engagement that's unpaid unless you're doing it wrong.
I agree.
So our agency, we look at two things. We look at whether or not they're in the top 5%, because now there's millions of podcasts out there. And I don't want to call some junk podcasts, but if they're too new, or they've been around and their listenership is really low, then our greatest resource that's unrenewable is our time. So we just really hone in on the time. But then there's another thing that we look at. If it's a really tight niche, and Seth Godin is amazing about this. His book, I think it's The Purple Cow, talks a lot about this. If it's a really very honed in niche, and they have a devoted following, but they may not be in the top 5% because, who wants to design vintage clothing, right? But the people who design vintage clothing, they're all about it and they are devoted. So if you happen to be in that genre, then definitely that's of value. But all of that to say, if you're an author or you're a speaker that's not an author, never discount the power of a good podcast to help you move your message.
I agree. And I think you're right on that. We actually, the same way, we focus on top 5% and above. And I think it's more about the niche. And if it's not the niche, then it's more about the ranking, just to be honest, because it's less about the amount of shows and more about the actual shows that you get on. And I think when people first have the idea of okay, I have a product or a service, I'm going to try to get on podcasts, they're more thinking about volume. And that can sad to say, it's just the truth. It can be a time waster because I think now there's I don't know. Last I checked, it was 800,000 podcasts or something. Maybe there's way more. I don't know. That was the last time I checked. So if you think about that, and let's say 700,000 of them have maybe a 10-person listenership. I don't know. I'm just making up. But, is it worth an hour of your time to only have 10 people? And maybe for some people it is, but for others it's not. So you just need to think about that because success isn't always measured on volume. If you're getting on 50 podcasts a week, but they all have no audience, it's not helping them.
Right. Yes.
So you just gotta be careful with that. It's like a false positive or something, It's like something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have two more questions for you. I'm gonna ask you a question, and then I would like for you to after this question, I would really like for you to let people know how to get a hold of you. I think we've already said it, but we'll say it again. And then I have our flagship question for the show that we'll end with. All right. So when it comes to our unrenewable resource, right? Time, which is precious. Let's just say I'm a speaker agent. If I want to put all of my secrets in a book and I hire your company or a company like yours, who you're going to set me up with your writers, you're going to do everything from beginning to end. Set my expectation. How long should that take, and how much commitment per week, hours per week, or whatever it might be, should I expect to commit to?
Yeah, I would say, so I'll go from the ghostwriting all the way to bestseller, right? Because the stuff after is kind of infinite depending on how much you want to put into it. But from there, you're looking at about 6 months, I'd say, is a good average. And the way that this would look is it would be 3 to 4 months of writing. So in that time, it would be weekly or bi-weekly interviews that are 1 hour. So let's just say 10 to 15 hours on your side for that. And then I would say, though, add another 5 hours at the end that, you're going to want to do a final read through at the end of because, it is your book. So you got to take the time to read it and then give feedback to our writers. So let's say all in 20 hours spread out over 3 to 4 months to have the final draft of your book. And that includes editing as well in there. And then publishing will take about a month to 2 months max. And the bestseller campaign, though, that can be scheduled. And ideally it is, you schedule that at the beginning. So 4 to 6 months in advance. So basically the publishing is just feedback on the book cover. So add another 2 hours maybe. So 22 hours total. And the marketing for bestseller, literally, you don't have to do anything. But most people do post it on their social media, hey, my new book's out. So let's add another hour there. So 23 hours all in. And 6 months will write, edit, publish, and make you a bestseller on any of the platforms. New York Times, again, that was a little trickier, but all the other ones, guaranteed or a full refund. So that's how
That's incredible, Tyler. That really is. So when you say publisher, so are you a publisher, or are you pitch me to other publishers?
No, I'm a publisher, but depending on the author's goals, I may pitch you to another publisher. Like if they want to hit New York Times, it's better if they don't go under us because we're like a service or hybrid publisher. So we would pitch them to a traditional in that case.
Gotcha. Really interesting. Does it hurt your New York Times standing if you go ahead, if I were to publish it through you, we get the ball rolling, we get some interest in the book, and then we pitch a more traditional publishing house?
Actually, just trying to think back to all these scenarios. That is a common thing that I shouldn't say common, but it's maybe we've done that for maybe a couple hundred books actually, where the author doesn't have like a large following. So it's hard for them to get a traditional publisher or like a deal. So they'll hire us and we'll get their book, a bunch of success. And then they take that book to pitch the publishers and then they'll get a deal, right? Gotcha. On the same book or on their second book. So the thing with that would just be like for New York Times, you want to do it within the first 3 months of release. So the only way that would be good is if it's the same book is you would want them to actually like republish and have a new start date there, which okay. I think they would rather than just like change the brand and like keep it in the same exact upload. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, that could work.
Okay. So, and I'm sure your answer is similar in that your time. This is all part of the same question. Your time investment is going to vary somewhat. What is the span of a monetary investment if you want to go all in and really have someone there linking arms with you from beginning to end?
Yeah, so our for that first one, the first scenario that I said, because I'll always put New York Times is just way out in left field, sure. Right? So everything else is in this universe. That's just not. But I'll tell you though, just for fun. So either way, first scenario, our ghostwriting is $50K, and then that includes unlimited editing. So that's like we do $25K up front, and then $25 at the end once you're 100% satisfied with the book. And then $8,500 is for the book cover, the formatting, publishing. So all of like the design element, publishing process. And then it's $60K for, I would say, like our middle to high tier bestseller package. And that's like, you're going to hit Amazon, Barnes and Noble, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, potentially some other lists. And you'll probably get anywhere from like 10 to 20,000 sales in a week of your book. So all in on that, you'd be looking at technically it's 118,500, but $120K for ease.
Yeah, that was kind of the math I was doing.
And that's like that's like a very solid campaign right there. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And so I pay the 120,000. How do I get that back? Do I get it back through book sales, or do I get it back through me getting on stages or me getting known and becoming sought after for my product or my service or my voice?
Yeah. So it's definitely not the book sales. And I actually like to explain that even a little deeper, just so people realize how bad it is on that side. Because I think it's just, we can really be in reality on that. And I know you already know, but just for the audience, because when we do this launch, it's 99 cents. When your ebook is 99 cents on Amazon, you only get 30% royalty. So let's just say it's on the upper end, 20,000 sales. You're only making $6,000 back on that.
Ouch. Yes.
So you're still pretty deep in the red on that one. You know what I mean? So it ain't good. But this is why I would say most of our clients are public speakers, like we're talking about here, or they have, or both, like a course consulting done for you. Like they have some sort of back end. The only scenarios that I found where they don't is like really two scenarios. If it's like a CEO of a company, which they do have a back end, but they're more just doing it for the brand. Like they just want to have NYT or Wall Street next to their name. They don't really care about anything else. They just want that. And I'm sure they leverage that, right? So it probably does pay off. Or if it's somebody who's like, they're already super wealthy and it's a pure impact book, then there's no back end and they're willing to pay that to get that book in a lot of hands and become a bestseller. But for everybody else, that, is looking at this as an investment and like ROI, without the back end, you probably will not make an ROI, but if you did, it would take 5-10 years. But it would be very unlikely that you even would, just on book royalties. Like, you'd have to sell so many books to make $100,000 in royalties.
I just love that you're so transparent, because honestly, this is your company, right? You want people to come to you, and you're so transparent. You have a lot of integrity, Tyler, and I really do appreciate that. So let me give the other side of it, because I'm the speaker agent, right? So let's say, got this beautiful book, have this incredible company who has gotten me the bestseller list, and let's just say in the first year, that book got me only 4 engagements, just 4 engagements. Every engagement done right should be, because there's 2 pillars of a speaker's income. There's the host checks, which most speakers are after those host checks. That's the smallest part of your speaking revenue. That might be $10,000. If you're maybe even $20,000, it's still a one and done. It's the smallest part. Done right, your audience checks are where it's at. And through your book, that is keeping you top of mind. They heard you. They love you. Now they know, like, and trust you. And now they've got your book in their hands, and they're going to seek you out for the next thing, right? So those audience checks in, let's say, an engagement of even 100 people, like, it doesn't even have to be a massive group. You done right, you should be able to walk away with at least $50,000 from that audience. Now, you won't see it that day, because a lot of times you can't sell from the stage, but there's a pipeline. And within 3 months to 6 months, you should be able to see that. And I have somebody who's just really, really great with spreadsheets, and they want to track everything. And they know from an engagement they did 5 years ago that one person that followed them from that engagement 5 years ago has resulted in $200,000 for them. Like, they track it all the way. It's that powerful. So yes, $120,000 sounds like an investment, but if it just opens up just 4 doors, you have more than paid for the book, right? In between the host checks and the audience checks, and then the rest is all cake. Right from there. So I see the value in it. And I know the average person might say, oh my goodness, I paid that for my house, right? Well, you're investing in a future. So that person who's like sweating right now and just saying, oh my goodness, what would they need to devote with regards to time and money? Same question. If they wanted your DIY package.
That is like way less. So I'd say our course that kind of covers everything, it's called BABS, Becoming a Bestseller. And that does cover like all the way writing all the way up until the bestseller. There's a tiny little part at the end that covers the back end stuff. So it doesn't fully cover like the business side of things. But that's only $997. So
$997 or 9,000?
No, 997, right?
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
It's actually, it is only a course though, right? Like, we don't do like the community or like, the weekly Q&A, like all those other benefits that a lot of other just course owners do. And the reason for that though is just really for scalability, just if I'm being completely honest. And that's why what I have found is high ticket done for you, where we just basically do it all for you. It's all on us. And then the course, it's all on you. Then there's no way we can hold each other up. Like, it's impossible. So it just flows so smoothly. So either way, that's why I do it that way.
Powerful, but they still have to probably hire an editor, hire a designer.
Good point. Okay. I didn't think about that. So, well, then it changed. Well, I would say this. Editor, designer, and everything. And if you do it the right way, let's just say maybe you're at 10K, so 9K more, and then you have your book. Now, the bestseller side of things, the Wall Street Journal and USA Today, it is, you almost, unless you have a large audience, you like can't do it on your own. Like, it's that hard. Like, you need at least 5,000 books sold in 1 week to have a shot at them.
Wow.
And just like, it's just a reality. Like most people don't have an audience that size to get that many sales in a week. So you would either have to hire us, or just do Amazon bestseller. You could do that. And let's say you could do that just with your network. Or maybe you spend 5 to 10K more on marketing to make that happen. So all in 15, 20K if you do it yourself.
Okay. So,
These are great
I'm
questions.
a DIYer. I'm going to do it myself.
I'm like figuring it out as you're asking me.
This is really good. You're amazing. So I'm a DIYer, let's just say, and I did it all myself, and I'm super motivated, and I, book myself for 4 hours a day of writing, whatever it might be. So if I were to go all in and hire you or a company like you, 6 months down the road, I should have a best-selling book, right? Everything is done, and I'm off to the races. What have you typically seen? I know there's going to be a huge fluctuation, but what have you typically seen if somebody DIYs it? Do they ever get the book done? Number one. And if they do, what kind of span of time do you kind of see them take?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the success rate is, honestly, but it's probably lower than 50% because it's just if you don't have accountability when you're writing a book, you ain't going to write it. Like you're just not, because whether you run a company or have a job and then you have a family, kids, girl, like whatever it is, the idea that you're going to write a book in your spare time, some people pull it off, but most people just don't, because it's always that thing on the side. And a book really does require the effort to be put on the forefront. Like it really does. Now I should say you could pull it off writing 1 hour every morning for maybe 6 months, maybe a year or two, just depends how long the book is. So you could do it that way. But also I would say most people without accountability are not that consistent to actually commit to 1 hour every morning.
Yes.
Most people do it probably for like a couple weeks and then they fall off and then they don't. So yeah, I'd say below 50% success rate. And if they do it, let's say on average, it takes a year.
Yes. Okay. If they're lucky, like if they really stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we find you?
The website, authorsunite.com. And then I guess me personally, my Instagram's Tyler B. Wagner. So that's where
Tyler B. Wagner. No tricks. Yeah. Tyler B. like book Wagner. Yeah. That's amazing. You also have a pretty strong following on LinkedIn. That's where I found you.
Yes. Yeah. LinkedIn and Instagram, I'd say, are my top two, but I actually like LinkedIn even more for like business. It's incredible. Way
Me
better.
too. Me too. That's my playground. I love LinkedIn. Okay. This is the question that I hit you with at the end of our interview. So the show is SpeakPact, and it's all about getting your voice out there and making an impact and doing good, right, in this world. What is your challenge, your pact with my audience? What would you encourage them to do to get their voices out there, to get that impact out there?
Well, I guess because I'm the book guy, I guess you could say, I would say if you have been wanting to write a book, and odds are to all the people listening to this that at least half of you are those people that want to write a book. There was literally a study done in New York Times that says 80% of people, I think adults, have like thought of the idea of writing a book before. So that's like a lot of people. So I'm sure your listeners, or most of them, are in that group. Pick one, right? And I think for people that are more on the budget side, I think they'll try to go down the path of the course and do it themselves, and some of them will succeed. If you do go down that path though, and you don't succeed, do what you can to, and it doesn't have to be us, but do what you can to be able to afford the necessary help to get you to finish the book. Yes. Right? Because, and again, I can just speak from my experience and all my clients' experiences, but I think mine almost is, to me, the most powerful, not because it's me, but just because most of my clients that come to me, they're already financially successful, and the book is kind of for scaling. My entire life is built off my book. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be anything of what I am right now if I didn't drop out of school and write that book. So if that means anything, it's just, to me, writing a book changed my entire life in the most positive way possible. So I think it's something that everybody should do at the beginning of their career and at the end of their career. It's beneficial in both ways. So that's what
it astounds me, people who have like 10 books. I have no idea how they do that, but some people have it in them.
Yeah.
This has been such an insightful interview. Thank you for your time and for being with us and for your generosity in all that you gave to us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Tyler. Hopefully we'll have you back at some point. If you'll come back, I think we have only just barely hit the surface of all that you have to offer. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in.
Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you for listening to the SpeakPact podcast. To become a recommended speaker of Antoniette's WPC speaker agency, or you are a host or planner looking for a dynamic expert in optimized performance, Antoniette would like to personally meet with you. Secure a time with her at speakerbooker.com. Again, that is speakerbooker.com. It all begins with a vision, a voice, and a pact to impact. Join the SpeakPact movement by joining our new private Facebook group at the link in our show notes. Find us on nearly every social media platform at One Antoniette. That's number 1, ANTONIETTE, or simply hashtag SpeakPact.